Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome. This is yet another radio show about A Course in Miracles. We do have the title of Living with Love. It helps us set our intention for having an open heart, kind and compassionate and loving as well, to extend that out to others in the world. And I have Peter on the line with me. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Sarah. Nice to be back.
Yeah, this is cool. So we've been going through the different sections in the second part of the workbook for students, and now we are at what is the second coming. So do you want to do some reading of that, Peter?
Yeah, I sure can.
Cool.
I do. As a matter of fact, I had it on my iPad. My iPad's about to run out, so I just got it on the phone here. Anyways.
Is that okay? You can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's fine.
Perfect.
All right. Christ's second coming, which is sure as God, is merely the correction of mistakes and the return of sanity. It is part of the condition that restores the never lost and reestablishes what is forever and forever true. It is the invitation to God's word to take illusion's place, the willingness to let forgiveness rest upon all things without exception and without reserve. It is the all-inclusive nature of Christ's second coming that permits it to embrace the world and hold you safe within its gentle advent, which encompasses all living things with you. There is no end to the release the second coming brings, as God's creation must be limitless. Forgiveness lights the second coming's way because it shines on everyone as one, and thus is oneness recognized at last. The second coming ends the lessons that the Holy Spirit teaches, making way for the last judgment in which learning ends in one last summary which will extend beyond itself and reaches up to God. The second coming is a time in which all minds are given to the hands of Christ to be returned to spirit in the name of the true creation and the will of God. The second coming is the one event in time which time itself cannot affect. For everyone who ever came to die or yet will come or who is present now is equally released from what he made. In this equality is Christ restored as one identity in which the sons of God acknowledge that they are all one. And God the Father smiles upon his Son, his one creation, and his only joy. Pray that the second coming will be soon, but do not rest with that. It needs your eyes and ears and hands and feet. It needs your voice. And most of all, it needs your willingness. Let us rejoice that we can do God's will and join together in its holy light. Behold, the Son of God is one in us, and we can reach our Father's love through him.
Very well read. Thank you, Peter. And is there anything that you thought of when you were reading that, or I can reflect? What would you like?
I guess the only thing is of course, this whole idea about second coming, because obviously I think most people think of Christ's first coming as an event that happened 2,000 years ago, and there has been in some circles a belief that Christ himself will reappear as a man. At least that's in some beliefs that I'm aware of. And yet I think what the Course in Miracles tries to point out is that this second coming, in fact, is one in which everyone is invited to have Christ reawaken within their awareness, so that we begin to see the world differently from what we created, a world of fear, a world of oftentimes pain and anger and regret and sorrow and insecurity and all that, so that the second coming of Christ is really one in which those perceptions are finally let go of, so that we may once again see that. We talked about it last week, really see the real world, the world beyond form, in which we recognize behind all appearance that Christ is still alive and dwells in all of us.
Mm. I have to completely agree with what the Course is trying to say, and what your interpretation is when Christ is reawakened within our hearts. And it's interesting though how many people have so many different views. Then again, there's so many different religions, and different. It's interesting too, because I've met a lot of people lately who aren't religious, maybe not necessarily, they don't have the faith in God, although they wish they had. They just have never, I guess, had an experience. I've had many experiences where, my prayers have been answered, or, I really feel like God's presence has always been in my life, but I've had people say, I wish I had that. And, so it's just interesting. But these people, when they told me that, they didn't believe in God, not that they didn't want to, but just because they had never seen anything manifest that they could say for certain was Him. But these people still go to church, and I put that in quotations because it's an open kind of service. They go for the community. So it's interesting how there's so many different awarenesses. And I have to say, too, this person in particular that I'm thinking of, they are one of the kindest, most gentle creatures. They care about, they're vegan, they care about what they eat, they care about their green footprint, they care about recycling. They're so spiritual. It's just kind of amazing to me because, I don't know, I just think you don't necessarily have to totally believe it or whatever. I don't know if there's another way of saying it, to be a really kind and gentle, caring person about the planet and everything, which is interesting.
Yeah, I would have to agree, and partly because, it's obvious there are many, many beliefs, many religions, many faiths and whatnot in the world, and yet the Course in Miracle, although it uses Christian theology, I don't think is either meant to be interpreted as only something that one would have to be a Christian in order to experience, or that one would have to have, in a sense, the more set beliefs that Christianity holds in order to come into this Christ awareness, this second coming of Christ. What I do feel is a prerequisite to it happening to anybody is not so much that we believe something prior, but that we have a desire which will take us to that place of openness. And right now, I think the world changing as much as it does, I think people are beginning to recognize a deeper desire to have something which obviously we can't get in the world. Everything in the world is changing more quickly now. Things seem to be on less stable ground than ever before. People are changing jobs, every few years. The environment is changing quickly. So many things are changing quickly that I think there's a thirst for everyone, regardless of a religion or anything else, to have a deeper sense of both of themselves and a deeper sense of security. And I think that desire itself is one which begins to open that portal whereby we willingly begin to let go of the things we've been grasping to, knowing that they no longer can satisfy us, and knowing that they're in many cases a source of fear. And I think as we let go of the barriers to experiencing Christ's presence, then anyone can recognize that it's there. And while no one knows in advance when it's going to happen, I do believe it's something we can call upon in a sense of being desirous of it and wanting and being willing to experience it, and then to practice keeping somewhat focused on that desire rather than returning to the desires of the world, because the two are in complete juxtaposition to each other. An outward focus gives us the world we have right now, which is again fearful and unstable and everything else. And an inward focus gives us that security, that sense of peace that nothing else can touch. And as more and more people, either consciously or unconsciously begin to turn within, I think that awareness of something beyond ourselves grows to the point where at some point we live differently, where we no longer rely upon outside influences and outside guidance or anything else, but really work from a much deeper inner connection as to how to live.
You know, it's interesting because I'm looking and only 10 minutes has passed, so we still have plenty of time to talk, and I just feel that this discussion is opening up, and I'm totally open to it opening up. I love it when it does. So when you're speaking there, I'm thinking about a couple of things. The first thing is consumerism and how when we look outward, you know, we're bombarded with the media, you know, telling us we need to buy this next phone and we need to do this next thing and we need to, you know, hurry out and do all these things. And then, you know, years and years of doing this and realizing that getting that next phone and getting that new thing and buying that new thing, nothing, like it's just this temporary moment of happiness and then it's just gone. And then as I'm thinking this and you're continuing talking, and I'm thinking about a young girl I know who's in university. And we had a conversation a couple months ago, and she said that I can't remember what class it was, but her professor had said to her in the, you know, teaching the class that the consumerism world that we're in right now, where, you know, you think of, I'm in my 40s, and I remember, you know, when I, like 30 years ago, you bought a washing machine, it lasted for 30 years. Now you buy a washing machine, and I have friends that are like 2 months later, they have to have a mechanic in to fix it. We have these computers that are constantly becoming obsolete. They're doing it on purpose so that we're spending. But apparently her professor had said that the world cannot sustain this. And I don't know how he came to his prediction, but he said 2025, the way that things are going, like even the way, you know, I think of someone who wanted to buy a car, and this is someone who, you know, didn't have good credit, and they ended up buying this car. They were really happy with it, and they said to me, Sarah, look, I got a car. Like, they're just so flippin' happy that now they have wheels and they can do this. And I said, well, how much interest did you pay? So they bought a $10,000 car, but it was like 29% interest. So if you do the math, I think by the time the term was over, they would have paid back. The car wouldn't have cost them 10, it would have cost them 30,000. And when you think on the grand scheme of things, like, how can that even be allowed? Like, really, it's like, you know, people are working to do what? To pay 29% interest for something, or even to pay 10%, you know, I don't know, it's just, you look at it and you think it can't continue. And I'm curious to see what you've got to say on what I had to say.
Well, you know, when we look outward in the world, there's a lot of things that I think we can point our finger at and say, this can't carry on, or this shouldn't be like this, or this shouldn't be like that. And yet, looking outward and deciding which things we agree with and which things we don't agree with has nothing to do with Christ's second coming.
No.
It's when we're actually able to turn away from the world and, in a sense, get caught up in that stuff out there. And by letting it go, first of all, as not being of the same value to us anymore, because we can see the inherent fleet. We begin to see how fleeting everything is. And as we no longer, in a sense, rely so much upon having this or having that, because we recognize in advance, okay, it's going to give me a few moments of pleasure and whatnot, and I want more than that. I don't just want to be happy for a couple of months because I have a new phone or a new car. So as we give up the attachment because we simply know that it's short-lived, and turn inward more, the sense of peace that we then get will be such that our actions are going to be much more self-regulated, because we no longer buy things as a substitute for the love that can only find inside. So it's only when we really kind of become more filled inside that consumerism can be addressed. I mean, if I'm no more happy with the new iPhone than the one I got because what I find inside is much more valuable, then I'm not as likely to buy a phone, and neither will other people likely be as much consumer driven out of a sense of emptiness and out of a sense of need. So, we could almost also say that, A Course in Miracles talks about the world being an illusion, and yet the way we get caught up in the illusion is to try and in a sense look at the world and judge certain things as being right and certain things as being wrong, certain things as being valuable, certain things as not being valuable. And in doing that, we still get caught up in the world and we stay in the world, and the illusion seems much stronger by doing that. As we let go of any judgment of anything as being either good or bad, right or wrong, and again, of course, Miracles right at the beginning says, nothing I see means anything. So our willingness to give up meaning to the world, that, a lot of people buying a lot of stuff will mean the end of the world, that's a meaning we give to it. And yet it's hard to give up those meanings, and yet at the same time, peace is only going to be found when we recognize that in judgment we lose a sense of holiness. Judgment and being close to God don't go hand in hand. And so as we recognize more and more what to let go of, we sink into greater and greater awareness of all things are neutral, and the only meaning they have is the meaning I give them, and the only meaning I'm interested in is in extending love to whatever I see.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting is I think what I was getting at when I was thinking about the consumerism and then how it's going to, this professor saying it was going to collapse, and I was just wondering if it was because more and more people like yourself and myself and this wonderful community we have here in Durham that is just growing by leaps and bounds. Every week there's new people. It's just phenomenal. And but I just wonder if it's because more and more of us are going to get to that point where there's not the need for it. And it's so funny because as you're talking about not needing a new thing or something, I'm looking at I have a first generation iPad, right? I went and got the iPad the day that it came out. And now, and I love it. I can have a 100% battery on it, and I can, play Scrabble on it. There's a lot of apps that still work, but they've made it now so that you can't upgrade it anymore. And I've had people say, "Oh, well, you need to get a new one," but I just can't justify getting another one when, basically, I think it's probably, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of all the apps that are on there still work, and it has a phenomenal battery life. So I'm thinking, I don't need one yet, right? So it's just interesting how our needs change. And then another thing I've realized too, and this is a little bit off of is off of the topic of the second coming, but it's there, and I'm sure other people are feeling it as well, is the consumerism has almost become an addiction. There could be you get your paycheck, say maybe, you've paid all your bills and you've done all this and that with your money, and then you get this money and now you're thinking, I've got this money that I didn't have yesterday and I need to go out, and then you're thinking, and then you get all these what can I get? So it's interesting though, because when you get to a certain Christ consciousness, I guess I'll call it, for the second coming, when we become a host for God, and I find myself, when I'm out shopping, I don't fall into thinking I must have this, and it's happening a lot less, but I still know that I can see it in my daughter. She'll be like, "Ooh, I need more nail polish," and I'm like, "You have 100 nail polishes. How do you need another one?" But sometimes it's just that act of getting something new, but what we're doing in those moments is we're seeking joy outward instead of finding it with peace within, and realizing there's nothing in this world we actually need because we have everything we need within.
I think that we're moving in that direction where where people are either becoming jaded with the world, which, although it doesn't feel good, could actually be seen in a different light of saying, you know what, when you begin to feel jaded and nothing in the world satisfies anymore, that's actually not a bad thing, provided that the person who's jaded and sees no longer anything out in the world that attracts them anymore, that they turn inward with a conscious desire to discover a love that perhaps they've never really looked for before.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, everybody's in a different place in the journey. And for some people, they almost, you could say, need to buy what they have to buy until they get to the point where they recognize the emptiness of it all. Mm-hmm. So it's not even so much a matter of us deciding for other people when enough is enough. If we can show them that that we're in connection with something that's almost palpably real in the sense of joy and peace, then people are going to be asking us, what is it we have that they don't have, in spite of the fact that we don't have all the luxuries and all the toys that they may have. So the only way that we can ever bring anybody into desiring that state more is to be it ourselves, and let other people discover that such a thing even exists. And if they're curious about it, we can share it. And if they desire still, as I say, to be caught up in the world, then again, we can either judge that as not being right, or we can simply extend love to them, and in that way show them that there is nothing inherently that is ever wrong. Love never sees anything as being wrong. It simply is such a satisfying, fulfilling awareness that as we connect more and more with it, the luster is lost somewhat in the exterior things of the world. The Course in Miracles talks at one point in talking about a picture with a very ornate frame, and how just like us being caught up in the world outside of us, we get caught up in this wonderful frame, how well it's made and everything else, and yet we miss the picture that the frame is framing. And you know, it's the same thing with us. Sometimes we get caught up in the external things, on the surface of things, of people and circumstances, not recognizing that underneath it all is an awareness of beauty that can only be revealed to the degree that we're looking for that, rather than the temporary things. So I think it's for all of us to decide how much we want to return to spirit, and then just let the eyes of spirit guide us as to how we see things. And you know, when we're extending joy, I mean, what greater gift could there be to anybody else to say that, you know what, there's something that you have within you that if you discovered it would never leave you. And beyond that, there's really no other message to tell.
Well, you know, it's just I'm listening and I'm thinking. So now, when I've got to this place where I don't feel the need to purchase things to satisfy myself, I don't quit smoking. I don't know, 7 or 10 years ago. I lost track of the years. That's how long it's been. I quit alcohol a year ago. I avoid sugar. So there's all these things that before I would have a sweet tooth, or I'd have a glass of wine, or there's all these little crutches that I had that I've given up, and I don't miss them at all. I don't sit here and think, oh, I wish I could have a glass of wine or a cigarette. Not at all. It's just not part of me. But so what I think for me, the most important thing at this moment, and this is just my personal thing, is connections with people and having authentic connections. It doesn't mean we have to be best friends. It doesn't mean that we have to talk every day. But it's just nice to know that there are people in my life now who understand the Course, who are coming along. And then also what I find is the more that I connect with the people around me, I'm constantly trying to send out love. Actually, I'm not going to say try. I'm sending out love. most amazing thing for me in the past month really has been my connection to every other person that I'm, involved with in this world and even outside of the world, although I can't see them. But the woman that I was speaking about earlier, who, is one of the most gentle souls I know, I don't talk to her very often. But 5 to 10 minutes ago, she just sent me a message and said, I'm thinking of you. And I don't talk about her often either. It's not like I think of, but so imagine how the energy and how we are all one and we are all connected. And then when you get to a point of, I don't know what point I'm at, I can't describe that. But what I do know is if I'm thinking about something, if I'm speaking something, very shortly after, something will pop up that will, it's incredible. So it's the synchronicities are bounteous. Like there's just so many and too many to count. And maybe I should write them all down because I even forget them all, right? Because there's just too much. But you think of the second coming and the Christ consciousness, and then you think of the energy that surrounds the world, and you're saying how the energy of the planet is vibrating faster. The veil is thinner. I've heard that. So there's all these various things that are contributing to this whole unfolding of the planet. And then the one line that I was really touched by this whole thing was, and God the Father smiles upon his Son, his one creation, and his only joy. So if we think of, God as the universe looking down at the earth, and then I, in my head, saw this, the little bits of war and the, these little volcanoes and these eruptions, but then you have the sunsets and the rainbows, and, they're happening, who knows how many rainbows happen at the same time on the earth, stuff like that. So I was just thinking about how beautiful that would be to look down and have just complete acceptance of whatever is happening on this planet. I created this, and wow, it's beautiful. And that's just really awesome.
I'm at a loss for words as to what to add to that.
But that's okay, because we only do have a couple more minutes. But isn't that just a beautiful picture to think of, that no matter, that like one drop in the ocean from the little garden, my favorite part of the book, that little part of the ocean that hates the actual ocean or is trying to get away from the ocean, but they can't be without the ocean. And then you think
the wave of the ocean, trying to separate itself from the ocean itself.
Just so much acceptance and love.
The one thing that just came up for me, because we were talking about it earlier, is this thing that a lot of us are going through, whereby we have certain feelings and emotions that certainly don't feel like love. And that when we have these emotions and these thoughts come up, there is a strong tendency to judge feeling like that or thinking like that and putting judgment on it as being wrong. And yet if we can simply see that, all it really is another opportunity for us to recognize that the more we become Christ-like, the more we can even embrace those times when we feel less than holy, those times when we have thoughts that perhaps would normally have made us completely unconscious. And now we can begin to feel those things and think those things, and yet where there's still an awareness of total acceptance of it, and where we no longer fight with it or try and deny it or push it away or struggle with it, and in just letting it be, allowing it to slowly disperse, just like the morning mist disperses when the sun comes up. We begin to recognize that even when I'm not feeling as I want to feel, that it too shall pass, and also that it's a good spiritual practice to recognize there is a part of me that can embrace all of this and completely forgive it, the thoughts and the feelings, And as we put love, in a sense, or allow love to demonstrate its power through us, then it becomes more real for us. Because it's only when love, in a sense, expresses itself in a very clear, healing way, to suddenly begin to feel love in tragic circumstance, or when we're feeling sad or lonely or hurt or upset, really begins to give us an awareness that love is beyond all of that. And so,
wow, that's beautiful.
Just remember, love is always there. Tune into it, and all those more difficult times cannot remain in the presence of love. And we just need sometimes to remember to be a little bit more stalwart, stick with it, and let love flow through us as we're feeling these pains. It's almost like birthing pains.
Oh yeah, certainly. There's certain times where you just get filled with so much.
Crap.
Some of the. Yeah, that just sums it all up without having to dig into it.
Yeah, that's the technical word for it. Crap.
Well, you know what? We've gone just a minute past our time, but they haven't cut us off yet. But we should probably say our goodbyes. So this was fabulous. Right. Thank you for the conversation, Peter.
As always, thank you, Sarah, and thanks to the listeners. Bye for now.
Perfect. Bye.